But that woman brings me to play. She said, lions are made for cages. Just a look at it tonight. All right. Good morning and welcome to Business webinar. It is now 8 o'clock and I thought we might get started. This is a webinar series for the Logan Chamber of Commerce. We recently created a book, thanks to Jackie Thompson, who managed to compile the chapters written by the members actually of the Chamber of Commerce, which was quite an achievement. And we've actually got the very wrangler herself here to talk with us today. So, as I said, this was based on this webinar series is based on this particular book. There it is behind me, Business to Business, and you can still buy the book. We are shipping the book out. It's $45, including shipping. So what I will do now is I will just let you know how we're going to run this morning. We are recording this. So this should run for about 30 minutes. We try to keep these reasonably short. We do them weekly now based on the chapters of the book. And we will have another one next week, and I'll announce that at the end. During the webinar, I'll be monitoring the chat window and the Q&A. So down the bottom is a Q&A button. If you click that, you can type in questions to either of our panelists this morning. We have two panelists this morning, and I'll moderate that and keep a track on that. Good morning to Carolyn. We've got Daniel, we've got Emma, we've got a few others. Who else do I see that I know? Rhiannon. Hi, Rhiannon. I've started the new book. Congratulations, book 4. Robert is there. He is our events coordinator. Fantastic to have you with us this morning, Robert. So what I might do is I might throw over to Jackie Thompson. Now, Jackie is the founder and director, I guess, chief cake maker at Contemporary Cakes and Classes. She runs cake classes. She makes amazing cakes. In fact, she made a cake for my recent 21st. Yeah, so you get a laugh out of that one. She does do amazing cakes, but she's also known for organising the Logan Small Business Expo, which will happen later this year because it'll be well after the restrictions have been lifted. So we're very excited about that. And then Jackie is joined by Gina Palmer. Now, Gina is co-founder and director of Minds Tomorrow. She has a background which extends across corporate governance, leadership, education, and senior management. And she's involved in the Griffith Industry Mentor Program and is invited to speak to students and their mentors around a constantly changing environment. So, ladies, if you're with me, can you turn your cameras on, say hi, and take it away?
Hi.
There we are. Hello, Gina. How are you?
Good morning. How are you all?
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. And then we have Jackie there as well. I'll turn mine off for the moment and leave it to you guys for a bit.
Thank you, Stuart, and welcome everybody. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us today, Gina. Obviously, we've gone through a couple of unusual months in business, and I wrote a chapter about isolation in business, not with the hindsight of what was about to come, but dealing with isolation in business does affect many businesses, and obviously what you do locally and online really, so when your name came up, I said, right, we must have a come on in. So welcome, Gina.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you.
And so really, I will talk a little bit, but I would love to hear your skill sets and advice on coping with this isolation. And many people are still going through it. It's not over right now. And it's going to probably be, not probably, but will be a long-term recovery for many. So, Gina, chat away.
Look, thank you. Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you to the Chamber. Thank you, Stuart. I want to say thank you to the Chamber and all the members because of their support and ongoing leadership, because it is, like the book says, it's about a collaboration. And look, the whole thing about this situation we're in now is that the world has basically been turned upside down. And I'm sure everyone agree with that. And like you said, we're not out of it yet. I don't know many people who have not been impacted adversely. I also know of people who have thrived. So in our conversations with colleagues around the world and around Australia, we are really pleased to hear about the people who are thriving and surviving, basically. So here we are in June, and the lockdown started a few months ago now. And I suppose one thing I like to ask people is this: are you feeling that there's going to be a new normal? Can you actually hear yourself talking about a new normal? Or do you really want to see a new normal and you can't wait for it to happen? Is there really going to be a new normal? Some people are saying, I'd like to go back to the way it was. Well, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I think there will be a new normal. Whatever that shape that's going to take is going to be really up to us as business leaders. And we are in a very large city in Australia, Logan City. However, we do stretch beyond southeast Queensland. We stretch to Queensland, Australia, and some of us stretch beyond. So some people are actually saying there's a lot going on inside their head. Some people are saying they're a bit stuck because of this isolation. So I'm going to talk with everybody about a few things that I want to share with you. So I've been doing a lot of work in the area of a topic that I suppose took my interest many years ago. And in fact, I think I was about 11 when we lost our farm in northern New South Wales to a flood. And yet I saw a community really go about rebuilding in the most phenomenal way. And that sowed the seed in my head about what is it that brings communities together and they just rebuild. So I've done a fair bit of research, and I've travelled around Europe with the business, finding out what's going on there. And I've interviewed quite a few people, and they all have the same sort of characteristic. So you talked about isolation, because it has been really full on in our face for some months. And I don't know about you, and the other members in the chamber, but I see that isolation is going to continue to have a wave effect, not a ripple effect. It's going to have a wave effect. And this situation of isolation was placed upon us by the government to safeguard human life. And at the same time, what we've heard from many mental health experts and doctors and so forth is the mental issues that are now associated with the isolation, and economic issues, the relationship issues, and so on. Now, we know isolation is basically being separated from something. And in our situation, let's take a business perspective. So we know that we've been isolated from our physical business environment. So for those of us who have a physical business presence, we've been isolated from that physical business. And for those of us working from home or who tend to do a lot of traveling around, we've been isolated in a different way. But I sat down, and I don't know if everyone can see this, but I drew myself a little diagram of concentric circles. Can you all see that? Yeah, I hope so. So this is a little handy thing that everybody can do. You can actually draw some concentric circles and put yourself right in the middle, just to understand the isolation, and then see what you can do in which concentric circle you're going to put a lot of your energy to un-isolate yourself, so to say. So if you put yourself right in the middle, and then the next circle out, you put your clients, if they're the next most important thing to you. And then from there, you go on and you keep adding all the people that are involved in your business. Just have a look at how that isolation now has kept you away from so many people. And if you flip it, you can also ask yourself, what have I been doing during isolation to maintain connectivity with those people? Because one thing we know in business is that when the connection breaks, it's really hard to reconnect. Yeah. So then once people have done that, I want you to ask yourself now, where do you add the mental dimension, the mental isolation for your business? Now, I've done this with some people already, and the mental isolation seems to go across all of the circles, and it's almost like the business owners I've been working with are forming a sphere, a three-dimensional sphere, and they're saying, well, this mental isolation for them is all over, whereas some other people have just drawn lines straight from me out. So everybody does it really differently. But there is not only physical isolation, there is human isolation, there is mental isolation. Now, medical researchers and doctors are now saying that there are a lot of health issues around our isolation, and we're talking worldwide. And I don't think this is going to be a surprise to anyone that those health issues tend to be around depression, poor sleep quality, impaired immunity, helplessness, and the list has gone on. Now, there is also this thing in business now called social disconnectedness. I mean, all these words now coming up. Business disconnectedness is one thing that I'm doing a fair bit of work about now, because it, as I said before, once the connection breaks, it's hard to reconnect. And that is one reason why your network is important. That is one reason why being a member of the chamber is important. Those networks are critical. But I want to just take a moment to talk about business disconnectedness and the mental side of what happens. Because there's a real impact on our cognitive, our mental ability as a business owner to get back on our feet, A, B, think laterally or differently about our business, and C, self-care as a business owner, and D, how do we reconnect with our clients and our business networks? Now, I only want to talk briefly about two of these. That's thinking literally and the business networks. So lateral thinking. Now, recently I've been working with one of our clients, an international business, and they're all online. There is no physical presence. And yet, when we went into lockdown and they went into isolation in a way, suddenly the business went down like this. Very successful business for a long time, but they weren't ready for this upside down world. And so they talked with me and they said, well, what do we need? And so we started thinking laterally, sideways, about, all right, well, what has been working really well for you and what can you continue? But let's look at differently the market. Who's in your market? What can you keep doing with your market? But what is the different market? What does that market want? How's that market behaving, and how do you even know? So we looked very carefully at what the market was chasing and what the market demand would be like in 12 months. So we as business owners are, and I know that everyone does this, constantly thinking ahead. You have to do it to survive. So the market itself is also different now. So we talk about a new normal. Let's look at our market share. It's quite different. Buyers are behaving differently. Some are behaving the same. Some buyers have actually disappeared. You look at how the media, Maya, David Jones are conditioning the buyers. They're expecting specials. They're shopping around more. They've got the liberty of sitting at home, being on the internet. It's a very different marketplace now. It was on the rise in terms of being more connected with the internet, but it's certainly changed quite a lot. So right now you've got to work out building your staircase and keeping in mind that whatever you're providing in your marketplace now that's providing cash flow, keep doing it, secure it, keep the buyers happy, and check the chain of happiness. It's really important, and make sure it's really secure. Now, as far as business networks, what I'd like to share with you is that those networks, whether they're just in Southeast Queensland, across Queensland, across Australia, or international, those networks are going to be critical. If you break a spider's web, you've broken it. Yeah. It's only going to be the spider that rebuilds it. All right? So you're the spider, the really good spider, a business spider. So I'm a company director and I'm on a few boards. And one thing I do know is that the networks across Australia have changed. Some of those businesses, for some business owners that they've had connections with, have gone. So what are you going to do to rebuild? You got to think about that. So it brings me back to that physical isolation. And I've got a few tips I'd like to share. So physical isolation. Now, one thing I know from a lot of colleagues is the issue around mental health. And as business owners, you've got to look after that, because without mental health, our cognitive ability falls off. We're not going to be able to think our way out. So that's very important. I'd like to suggest that if you've got networks across Australia or Southeast Queensland or wherever they are, well, what are you doing to build that connection or reconnect? And what's the value for you? And what value are you also contributing?
Yeah.
What's your story? And how is that being heard by the community? How is that being heard by new markets? Do you know? Because the thing is, society is hooked on the virtual world. It's hooked. And that means that they're going to be buying from the person that they can connect with virtually. It makes it easy for them. All right? People are looking always for the easy way out. It's just human nature. So the thing is, did you know that everyone has a buying strategy? It all happens in our head. So if you can understand the online buying strategy, or if you can understand the strategy people have for wanting to come back to a physical place, work it.
So how would Gina, how would people find out like what the different online buying strategies are?
Okay, so it's a mental process. And the mental process is this. Every single person who goes to buy a product or a service already has in their mind a picture about what they want. They then go looking for it. So the whole thing is, a person will have usually a picture in their mind about what it is they want. We all do it. Everyone practices this strategy, but it's instantaneous. If it's online, they see it, they buy it. Some people see it, they want to talk to an online chats person, they make the decision, they buy it. Yeah. So your virtual presence has to be one around engagement. The moment someone lands on your page, how engaged are they? You need to look at your engagement factor on your virtual presence. Yeah. Because if you have a look, the top Twitter sites in the world, there's a lot of engagement on those Twitter pages. All right, people telling a story.
Perfect.
And that story is so important. How you tell the story is important, really important. So does that answer your question, Stuart?
It does. It does.
So recently I added a sign-up newsletter on my website, and that has gained 10% sign-ups already. So that's one way I've been digitally connecting. And the newsletter, I've also had to adapt the business and make it more digital online. So I've got online tutorials because I have a cooking school. But I've really had to rethink my business, and I've had to make it more digital. It always has been 50-50, but at the moment it's 80%, digital. And the newsletter is a way of connecting and then letting them know that I'm still there, and then people have messaged back. But also for me, I've also had an opportunity to improve my digital awareness, become more listed, connect. I've even had coffee and chat ups on Messenger with students for 10 minutes, and never would I have thought I'd have a cup of coffee and chat with one of my students for 10 minutes. But I've done that, yes, because it makes us feel connected and it shows we care, So I've definitely changed the way I do things through this corona. I was going to say occasion, but it's not an occasion. I won't say trauma, but it's almost trauma, Mental health is so important as well. In my book, I talk about going out for walks and, but we've kind of been forced to do the stuff that I normally recommend. And that's different. I think we've had a forced time rather than a chosen time that you're isolated, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And that when it's just human nature, when something is forced on us, how is it that we react to that?
Yeah.
So I've seen a couple of things. I've seen people suddenly get stuck in a state. They get stuck in a mental state. And I've had some business owners call me about it. And it's really about indecision. It's about suddenly this thing has happened to us. This is not what we wanted. This is not what was in our plan. So indecision isn't a good thing either, because people just stay stuck. But, you know, you talked just before about the forced rather than chosen. And one thing that we know worldwide is the factor of resilience.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we all have it inside ourselves. And a lot of the psychologists and psychiatrists who work in this space, particularly in business, they say people have got resilience in them. And the whole thing is, well, what is it? It's the ability to just be able to get back up when you get knocked down. I think there's a song about that somewhere in my memory. But the whole thing is, you go back and you look at history in the world. After World War I, the borders of Europe were never the same.
Yeah.
After the GFC, banks and lending was never the same. And if you remember, after 9/11, travel was never the same. So how do we actually prepare ourselves mentally for coming out of isolation? Because now we've got to look at the flip side. And the whole thing about it is, resilience also has a lot to do with our emotions, which is why there is such a relationship with mental health. Now, talking about some people that we're working with, they've got a lot of negative emotions that they've got to do something about.
Yeah.
And then once they are able to address those, then their mind basically opens back up. But I just want to mention something really important. And there's a lot of work done around this space. I don't know, I hope everyone can see that.
Yeah.
Go back to the old maths days in classes, right? And it's a C with a greater than symbol and an E. And there's been so much work done by Harvard Business School and lots of others about this. And they say that, well, yes, we are still in physical isolation here in Queensland because our borders are shut. And for some, that's really affecting business. And the losses to people, businesses have been enormous. Again, I know that there are some businesses are thriving. So for resilience to happen, is a person going to be the person that's really focused on being at cause for their decisions, or are they going to be at the effect of someone else's decisions and reasons for being in the situation that they're at? So I always ask this question. It's one that I remind myself of every day. Am I at cause for this, or am I making excuses? Which one's going to give me results? And as business owners, we want results.
We have to, yeah.
So that's, the whole thing is, which side are we on because of isolation?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that, Jackie?
Yeah, and I think now we've got a great opportunity to rewrite that business plan, add extras that we kind of forgot, and my plan, my business, my pathways have totally changed now, because there isn't a quite straight road, and I think we have to adapt. If we can't adapt, then we can't move on, but I think obviously we all need to be connected with people, and if you have a business coach or you have a great support team like the Chambers, and that's what I've written about the book, that we shouldn't be alone. And that was my last sentence. We are not alone. You're not alone. But we need to make sure that we can connect, and we are able to connect, and I think that's the thing, to know there is support out there. Now, I know the government is offering lots of free mentoring courses. There's also the mental health stuff that's out there, and I think Stuart will put some links once we make this video live. But I really feel that mental health is going to probably show its the true what's happening, also financially as well, the government stepping in and assisting a certain amount. But I still think, obviously, financial is a huge impact on our mental health, and obviously our financial incomes, etc., have obviously been hit very hard. And if we're not earning and making the money to pay the bills, it has a huge ongoing circle. So
it's interesting what you say there, because one person that we know who's in another state, her whole business collapsed overnight.
Wow.
So all the income that she was planning on the future just collapsed overnight.
Yeah.
And so she had to think very quickly and go back to basics and say, all right, I now have to do. She didn't sleep for days, but she got back to basics and said, right, what can I do online quickly?
Yeah.
And it was amazing. I mean, that was 2.5 months ago.
Yeah.
2.5 months. She saved herself because of a quick. So you're right. It's the mental health. And sadly, because of the area of work I'm in, there are a lot of people who are saying that the mental health issues are rising, but they're not actually being mentioned a lot by the media.
No.
At the same time, aren't enough people out there able to help because the resources are stretched.
Yeah.
So, like you said, look, stay connected. The chamber is so important, very important.
It is. Yeah. Well, Gina, it's been wonderful. You're a fountain of information, and we are definitely going to reconnect again. Stuart, are you there?
I am.
Hello, Stuart.
And thank you very much. It was very, very interesting. I've got one question that I was going to ask, but it just flew out of my head. It was around that you were saying that the people buying online and how they picture and how you engage with them online. And I do know there are a number of businesses that are, as you say, they've moved to online, but that understanding how to engage better online. I know that there's a plugin for WordPress where you can have it connect to your phone. So you put the app on your phone and it connects to WordPress. And if someone is on your site, then a little chat window pops up. And if they chat, it comes to your phone wherever you are, which was fantastic pre-COVID. Because if you're in a coffee shop, you get look, someone's just asked a question. I have a few moments. I'll quickly reply. But I think probably now this is those sort of things where we can connect instantly with our clients, answer that question. Stuart's online now and will answer your question, and they can put in a question and actually get a proper answer. Is that the kind of thing that you're talking about?
Look, that's one of the things, because one thing we've noticed over probably past 6 months is that instantaneous response, particularly of a certain age group. Now, because of the lockdown, that age group has now stretched. It's not just the young people who want an instantaneous reply. It's everybody, because they're online. So if you can make good use of chat, I think that's that instantaneous great feeling that people get. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, we're all getting a bit sick of the worldwide wait. We've waited enough now.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just get on with it.
Fabulous. Okay, so you can connect with Gina at mindstomorrow.com.au. Jackie, how would you like people to connect with you?
Well, you can connect via my website, contemporarycakes.com.au. I'm a local cooking school in Daisy Hill.
Fantastic.
In Logan.
All right. So as I said at the start, we are going to have, this is a part of a series, and it's every Wednesday morning for 30 minutes. Today we had isolation in business with Jackie. Next week we have business systems with Tim Stokes. Now Tim has got a special guest with him. Then we move on to the things you need to know about IT, assembling your team, management of staff, and so on. What I would suggest is have a look at those if you're any of those that are particularly of interest to you, put a circle around them, put that in your diary. You will get a notification from the chamber for each one. And if you've signed up for one of these webinars, you've actually signed up for a few of them. Most of these chapters were written by our committee. But so, as I said, next week we have Tim Stokes from Profit Transformations talking about business systems. This is our 2019-2020 committee who are all safely isolating at the moment. And we do want to thank our sponsors. We do have some fantastic sponsors and continue to sponsor us even during COVID. The Logan Office of Economic Development, Invest Logan, 101 FM, IKEA, Rebel 90.5 and The Breeze, and of course Meadowbrook Golf Club, where we have our fantastic breakfasts quite often. They're still powering along now, so if you're in isolation and have some spare moments, head over to the Meadowbrook Golf Club, have a round. Robert, if you're still on, we should hit that driving range. All right, next, as I said, next week we have business systems, but until then, stay safe. Keep your clients online, keep them engaged in any way you can, and we'll catch up with you next Wednesday morning.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Buy the book.
Yeah, everyone. Thank you.